tie everything together in a safe manner. We also continue with the what we call the large 4-inch DPE pipe. That's the 36-inch diameter plastic pipe that will carry the coolant water from the steam turbine condenser to the cooling tower that's being erected at this time as well, or we'll continue on over to the AWU ERS facility, where we have a series of what we call plate heat exchangers, where our water will go through these heat exchangers, and the AWU cool water coming in from the reservoir will interface against the plate, and it'll take our heat in exchange for its coolness, and our water will return to the plant at a much lower, cooler temperature and be more efficient.
So it is a closed system?
Yes, ma'am. It's a we call it a closed loop system. We're also this last period, we're preparing for the start of the steel erection of the building. The steel it's in 5 areas. The building's been blocked out into 5 areas. And the first area, which is the admin building, that steel is all here now at one of our off-site laydown areas. It has been offloaded, and it's called what we call shaken out. They take all the steel members, identify them, check them against the dimensional drawings prior to bringing the pieces to the site for erection. That erection of the steel will start the Monday after Labor Day, which will be the 8th of September. That'll be a major milestone for the project, getting the steel started. The goal is to have the entire building erected steel-wise, the exterior metal siding completely wrapped around the building, and the roof on the building top and watertight by the first week of December. So it's a very aggressive program. Everything has been scheduled out and planned out. Steel deliveries, craneage, everything else. So we still have anticipate our ability to make that first week of December date for top out of the building.
Excuse me. Do you ever have to, in the fall we have the raining sideways days? Can you continue during raining sideways?
Yes, we're using, the contractor is utilizing all local firms here from the Anchorage area. So all these firms have been meeting with the contractor and ourselves. They are all very confident. They've all bought into the erection schedule. They all say that their workers are well adapt to these types of conditions this type of year, and they do have contingency plans, basically more hours or weekend work to maintain this very aggressive schedule that we have. Naturally, we're all hoping that the weather will cooperate with us to some degree, but there are certain days when the winds are too high to safely fly steel in the air, or allow people to be up in the air in aerial lifts. So those kinds of things, there's nothing we can do if
without their parasol.
I'm sorry?
Without their parasol. Up on the lift without a parasol.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even want them up on the lift if I would, because these winds are awful.
No, this is, thank you.
Now, also, as I mentioned earlier, the cooling tower is being constructed. We just started what we call the second lift of vents. The first series of vents brought the tower up out of the basin about 20 feet. The second series of vents, which will be above the media, what they call the media, when the water falls from above through the header system, it lands on this media material that's an extruded plastic that channelizes the water back and forth, gives it a lot of surface area, and on the top of the cooling tower are these large fans and motors that pull the air up across in from the bottom of the cooling tower and bring it up. So the water's falling the air is coming up and it cools, the air is cooling the water considerably. And this is a special cooling tower that has what they call drift eliminators, which will greatly reduce what we call the vapor plume. When you drive by a cooling tower, you'll see these big plumes, and especially when it's cold, of condensation going up in the air. Well, this will be very, very minimal because of the special design of this cooling tower that the SPX Corporation has designed and used in the past. So it's a proven design, and the cooling tower will enhance the operation of the facility, plus greatly reduce the we call the exhaust plume of the cooled air. And we have high expectations that this will also be a benefit to the area.
Could I just, but there's no heat exchange units on the cooling tower, is that correct? Or?
The heat exchange in the cooling tower is the activity of the warm water coming off the condenser through pumps, being pumped up to the top of the cooling tower. And then inside the cooling tower, you can't see it, but there's we call it distribution grid, which is a manifold with many large pipes feeding smaller pipes, like a condensed lawn sprinkler.
Right.
And so this is spreading the water over the entire surface, then it free falls through the media. The fan on the top pulls the air up, so it interacts through the media, bringing that cool air on all that surface area that the water's on. The water will drop significantly in temperature. And then it's recovered.
But, okay, are you capturing any energy from that? That's my question.
Not at that point, the energy is pretty much, we've already captured as much of the thermal energy as we can through other heat exchangers prior to it going to the cooling tower. And the cooling tower is really our backup to the primary loop, which would be sending the warm water off of the steam condenser chest to the ERS facility, where we have the very large, what we call plate exchangers. Those will significantly draw the temperature down, and it's only when AWU is either offline or there's some other problem that we will drive our water to the cooling tower. So the cooling tower is not the primary beneficiary of the loop. It's the AWU heat exchangers will take that heat and then come on into the city, drinking through the drinking water system, and there'll be benefits here in town as well.
Thank you.
Sort of got off track here.
Sorry, that's my fault.
No, that's okay. I'm glad to explain it. Also, on the next page, we go to scope changes. Do you want to address those, Eugene, or you want me to continue?
I'll address the scope in the budget. Can you speak to where we're at with schedule?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Okay. The schedule right now, the schedule has a completion date, contract completion date of June 12th, 2016. We will meet that date without any problem, and we have hopes of actually bettering that completion date. The EPC contractor, as we have mentioned in the past, is driving his group to a 24-month schedule, but we have a 30-month contractual schedule, and we will land somewhere between probably 26 and 30 months completion.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Scope changes, very important aspect to any deviation from a contract. Right now we have two deviations that are in process or are complete, but they're both in process. The first one is what we spoke about before, realigning the basement for putting our dispatch center down there. And that there's a memo 2 pages past this that explains in support of what we're looking at doing. We broke that up into 3 phases. Current phase has been executed as change order 3, $30,000 to realign the existing space before concrete was poured. That has been done. The basement is done. The space is aligned to accept the dispatch center should we elect to outfit it out. But there's 2 more phases called give me a quote to finish out the basement, and that is currently in process, and then we would execute that if that is timely and economical. But so phase 1 of the dispatch center move to the basement is done, and was done in a fashion that did not change the contractor's schedule or impede them in any fashion. The second scope change is MLMP has decided that to increase reliability by looping one of its feeders through the project. It's currently a radial feeder, which is feeding the AWW and N-Star and ERS building. And we're going to loop it back through the plant, back to a substation for additional reliability. And so that's a directed change, and we're currently getting a price for that. But those are the 2 deviations to the contract so far. That's forward-looking. Somewhat in arrears or in process would be change orders. Change order 1's executed a couple months ago. It's just dotting I's and crossing T's, contract terminology, 0 cost. Change order 2 is what we spoke about, where it's a net 0 sum change to the muni, as we are going to have Quanta do some activities that GE has to do, change orders for them, and then charge it back to GE. And so this is a placeholder to do those activities. I believe we're up to about 25,000, yeah, of that not to exceed value. And then change order 3 is what I spoke to about the first phase of the basement realignment. Looking forward with change orders, future change orders would be the 2nd and 3rd phase of the basement realignment and dispatch center build out. And item 2 there would be the 1-year warranty, must be exercised by September 12th. That is currently in process, and it's looking like we are going to execute that 2nd-year warranty. It's looking favorable to cheap insurance, if you will. The plant has a 1-year warranty on equipment construction, and to extend that would be is quite cheap. This remind us that the $290,000 is a bid item in the original contract, so it's firm and was bid on at the time of contract. And then once we capture all the GE or more of the GE chargeback costs, we will execute a change order to the GE contract and charge them back that which we've captured on the Quanta contract. I'd like to go, at this point, 2 pages on to the table, the cost tracking table. It's page 6, where from last month, Quanta contract has stepped up, I believe six some odd $million. GE has gone up quite a bit as the turbine, there was large payments for delivery safely and setting transfer of title to MLP. IEC is still on budget, and the other items are still on budget and ticking up slowly. And we're currently at $95 million spent. Everything is looking good there. I'd like to entertain any questions.
Any questions?
I will note that currently in process is a $12 million payment to Quanta for July activities. And we can go to the next page where the yes, sir.
Just quickly, is the amount of work done commensurate with the amount of payment? I mean, are we at 30% or?
Absolutely. 30%.
30% spent. But
We're at about 20% on construction.
Yeah, this 300 million is a roll-up of a lot of things.
yeah,
Not just the EPC contractor, which is naturally 2/3 of the overall price.
And this table look at the whole project globally at 30%, would include the gas turbines, which was
Yeah.
a $50 million contract that, and so we are,
But basically, you're on schedule with the work,
We are.
commensurate with the amount to spend.
right, and I'll also answer that question on the next page with the projected spend plan to actuals, where GRIF does not allow Quanta to bill us beyond earned value. And he has turned back and questioned invoices and said, and it's the first step to ensure that you're only claiming that which you build, bought equipment, actually poured concrete, actually earned in man hours, so that we're not floating the contractor. I will note, so June is closed. June actuals was about 8 million, just shy of 8 million, but at the time of signing the contract, they had projected to bill around 14. They got a slow start with engineering, and July was going to be around 9 million, and now it's ticking up. It's like I said, there's a $12 million billing process. So I expect to see things have shifted a little bit, but that's due to their engineering and alignment of procurement activities. But it's well within the I don't want to say noise, but it's checked as an earned value by Griff and the construction management team. Likewise, a step back with the roll-up and the spend to projected on the overall contract. The only item that it would be accurate at this point, it would be June and June to date. So the third orange bar from the right. And then July is in process, as there's a $12 million payment to Quanta, and GE has been paid. But as you can see, July and August to date they're not accurate until it's shown that they've actually been paid, and that's usually 45 to 60 days in arrears, given that they have a month to bill us for what they claimed the previous month. So overall, the project is going well and on budget. Did you want to talk about any new issues in the business?
Yeah, right now, we have no issues. We try not to get ourselves in a position to have issues. We have set up a series of checks and balances. We have morning meetings prior to start of work with the contractor and all the subcontractors to go over the day's activities. And in that meeting, we ensure that the contractor has his right equipment at the right location for the right trade. We also go over the safety issues for the day. We also go over deliveries of equipment to the site, so the workers are aware that there's special things coming into the site daily. They need to be aware of these movements because it's a very, very tight site. So after we have that morning meeting, the subcontractors then go and meet with their foreman, who in turn meet with their individual work crews and have what they call a JHA or JSA, job hazard analysis or job safety analysis, where each activity that crew will do that day is written down, and they go over the steps to perform that activity. Then all of the workers involved in that activity sign off, acknowledging that they heard it, they understood it, and if there's any questions, they understood the answers. So we have a check and balance system that way. We also have weekly phone call-in meetings with the engineering team and the EPC contractors' senior management. We also have monthly meetings where the contractor senior management comes to the site and puts on almost a 2-day presentation of where they've gone in the last report period, plus where they're going the next 30, 90 days. So we have a look ahead to see where we're heading in case we have any potential issues. We bring them up at that time, we get them tabled and discussed and resolved to the best of our ability. So we really have had no issues, and we have this, what I consider a very open line of communication back and forth. And we have good dialogue daily with both the contractor and the subcontractors, as well as the EPC main contractor, Quanta, has put a senior manager at the site to make sure that there is no issues that he needs to address and take upstairs to his other senior people. So we have what I consider a very good work plan. It's working well. We have no issues. We don't expect to have any issues. We have good communication. We have good dialogue daily with everybody. So we're just moving along, planning the work and working the plan daily.
And I'm sure Griff was remiss, and I know he didn't do it on purpose, but he also, there's also every other week, there's an executive committee meeting where we go through all the details of the project to include the budget and the schedule. Right, Griff?
Right, so we're not short of meetings.
I was gonna say.
When do you work?
How's your
After
patience?
Well, the morning meetings are held at 6 o'clock prior to start of work at 7. So we meet for almost an hour prior to work.
Didn't
So-
you have experience on the pipeline?
I'm sorry?
Did you have experience on the pipeline? Building
Yes, I
part-
did. I was on the Alyeska project, and then I was the engineering manager for field activities on the ill-fated gas project, gas pipeline project. And then I've also worked on the slope with the water reinjection projects early on in the late 70s and early 80s.
So you're very aware of the safety moments.
Good.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Eugene or myself?
I just have a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you very much for showing some of us assembly members around the site. It was informative. It was a great, I think Mr. Steele was there. It was a great opportunity for us to see, and I think the recommendation was that we come back after, like December, January timeframe, and have more of the assembly members back when there's more construction that has actually been done. I think that's probably going to be a good opportunity for us just to kind of get back in and reevaluate where we're at, but I was impressed. It was a very great opportunity. So once it's a good time, I would suggest that you get with the enterprise chair and try to schedule like a meeting of the whole, just so everybody can go out and see the site once there's a little bit more done, because I think it was, it's an expensive project.
I'd like to make that request probably after we get steel started.
Yeah.
So you can see some real
I don't mind waiting a
real
little
physical
bit.
progress.
It was great.
I just have a follow-on comment to that, Ms. Nabowski. We would entertain individual tours at any time, and then I'm also working on a tour of the site with MLMP Commission sometime in September. They haven't had an official tour. And then I also wanted to point out that there is a favorable article in this month's Alaska Business Monthly on the project. So I want to take a look at that. And go through the pictures at your own leisure, but it's kind of interesting. The last 3 pages or 4 pages are the installation of the engines into the package, and each of these engines are roughly $10 million, and they are replaceable, much like the airplane engine on a wing when it comes to maintenance time, and is a key factor in the lower overall maintenance and downtime of the efficient plant. Also, these engines are a variant of the type of engine that's on the 767 aircraft, so it's pretty interesting.
It's really cool. Let's be honest. It's pretty cool.
Now, did you tell me you were not going to have a spare as opposed to what they have out at?
We are going to have a spare.
You are going to have a spare, so you can change out should there be an issue? Send one
Correct.
off.
Correct. We did an analysis that shows that it pays for itself in the downtime and not having to be part of the spare rental car pool, spare engine pool, that for a quick swap, having your own pays for itself in 2 maintenance cycles. Now, that engine is being currently constructed and will be delivered in September, October.
Later in September.
Now, are they the same engines that they have over the other, or that you guys have over the other plant?
They're the same engines, but we bought an additional option called Sprint, which is a water injection into the inlet for extra power when you need it, and they did not do that.
I'm just wondering if it would be reasonable to have one between it.
We looked at that, and that was a consideration, and we backed away from that when, over in that project, SPP, the engine is critical to the long-term service agreement that they have signed up with GE, between Chugach and GE, and we have not done that over here. So we're electing to take on the responsibility of maintenance on our own. They have paying an insurance policy, if you will, to have GE handle any and all maintenance issues. But as a part of that, that spare engine must be available at all times to them over there. So we couldn't leverage that.
You might, when the commission goes, you might notice it to the clerk, and she can notice to any assembly members that'd be interested.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked the CFO to come down and discuss some financing tools that we might be looking at. Would the court mind if within it goes, I guess between the two it might.
Do we have the option to continue beyond?
I'll be quick. So Jennifer asked about the financing, and I think you all remember that we are using commercial paper to finance this expansion. And what that means is that as expenditures occur, then we go out into the market and we get commercial paper. And as a result of doing this, we can obtain a lot lower interest rate because it's short term. So we currently have been able to get commercial paper with a total cost of about 80 basis points, which is 0.8% money. And then as the mayor announced at the assembly meeting on Tuesday, on Monday and Tuesday this week, we will be going to New York to work with our investment bankers on converting this commercial paper to a revenue bond, a long-term revenue bond. And the reason why we're doing that is because what we had told you all is that we were going to have this commercial paper program in place and be watching for interest rates to go up, and then try to time the market such that we would convert it prior to interest rates going up. But a really odd thing has happened with electric utility credits, and that is that they dropped 80 basis points in their interest rates in the month of April of this year. So we are now scrambling to issue revenue bonds as quickly as we can so that we can capture even a lower interest rate environment than we had anticipated. So we plan to sell about $185 million of a revenue bond here in the month of October, November, recognizing that Plant 2 will still be in construction and we will still have probably another 20 to 30 million left to spend at that point in time. And so our plan of finance is to issue the revenue bond for about 185, and as we get closer to October, we'll still be looking at the actual spend. We may adjust that number. And then what we'll do is we'll still continue with a short-term interest program after that. So we'll evaluate what the rates would be for commercial paper, as well as compare it to a direct line of credit program, which is about a 2-year program, which is still less than a long-term revenue bond. So we'll evaluate that at the time, depending on where interest rates are, and then make a decision about which of those two programs we should do. And then in about another year, then we will go ahead and convert that to a long-term revenue bond. So this entire plan of financing up until October will save about $40 million in interest expense as a result of using this type of a financing program versus issuing a long-term revenue bond in the beginning. So our goal is to monetize the savings and capture them before any uptick in interest rates. We don't normally try to time the market, but this is kind of a unique situation where we really want to lock in at this low rate. So we just hope it stays low until October.
Any questions? And you're not using the hybrid,
Build America bonds.
right?
No.
Thank you. Ford?
Well, slide over with it.
So we wanted to start this update. Yeah, there should be a update on the table.
Sorry. Anybody else?
Yes,
Yeah.
give me one. Well, actually, I have it. Didn't know I had it.
Oh, your papers. Sorry, go ahead.
So we wanted to start the update today with a recap of the shred that occurred last week. Again, the purpose of the shred was to bring together our customer, users, stakeholders primarily, and subject matter experts to review some baseline concepts for how we might move the project forward, get their input, evaluate the pros and cons and other factors that might need to be considered, and then leave off with an understanding of what works, doesn't work, so we can move some concepts forward to a 15% development level. So I've attached the agenda for last week, and again, we started that week with a presentation of 4 primary baseline concepts, 2 of which had alternate phasing plans, and we kind of worked that through the first day, getting the subject matter expert input that we'd actually ask some questions ahead of the charrette, stimulate the conversation, and by the end of the day we had whittled those down to 4. The 4 baseline concepts. We removed a couple of the phasing alternatives that just weren't going to work, and then started the second day with kind of some redrawn pictures of those 4 concepts to again further the creative idea process to extract how can we improve on these and ultimately get the group to down select to 3. That was our goal, to down select to 3 concepts that had value to advance to the 15% design estimate, and we did reach that milestone at the end of the day on Tuesday, so that was very positive. So the second day or the third day and the first half of the fourth day are kind of devoted to the project team, the CH2M Hill team, crunching numbers, redrawing pictures, further refining those concepts so that we could then finish the week pulling everybody back together, reconfirming that we'd incorporated the creative ideas properly and really make sure we understood what other issues might need to be run down before we're in a position to arrive at the 15% level and brief these out in November.
When I was looking at this last night, I didn't have a feel who took part in the charrette.
I realized today that I should have attached the attendee or the invitee list. We can certainly provide that.
Did you send that later?
We would like
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah, but let me just run through it. We had a diverse group just from the owner's perspective, the municipality's perspective. Obviously, all of us at the port attended. We had Ron representing the purchasing department, project management engineering. Jerry Hansen was there. And we'd invited Kevin Spillers too from the Office of Emergency Management because lifeline infrastructure is such an important issue that needs to be addressed here. So we also invited Jerry Weaver at the community planning level and the building safety division, which is a key stakeholder as we move forward in the permitting for the project. So we want to make sure we really had the municipality departments well represented. We also invited representatives from the Geotechnical Advisory Commission they've been very interested in the project and we're seeking their guidance on some of the structural geotechnical design parameters. So we wanted to make sure they were involved early on. And also invited the principal utility entities that we know will have some connectivity to the project: NLMP, NSTAR, AWWU. I mean, we've already had a lot of work with these entities up to this point, so they already came in with quite a background. But then, again, our focus was really customer focused, and so we had Total Motion Trailer Express well represented, Horizon Lines well represented, ABI, Alaska Basic Industries, which is the cement user of the facility. Phasing, we recognize that phasing could really impact them as well. We invited all of the petroleum users and also the Alaska Railroad as a user, customer, stakeholder. And then last but not least, the Corps of Engineers operations group that's responsible for the maintenance, dredging, and any other dredging impacts that the project might have, they need to be a part of. So that was the core stakeholder group.
Pilots.
Oh yeah, and the Southwest Alaska Pilots Association. I shouldn't forget them. They were real important there.
Do you have representatives from the military there? The Corps of Engineer, they're quasi-military. Do they have military?
We did not invite the SDDC, the Surface Deployment Group, this time around. We feel like we have a pretty good understanding of their needs, and their operations have changed a bit, where they're relying more on Tote and Horizon for the deployments. But we feel that by addressing our primary customers, we certainly understand the military requirements, and didn't expect that that was a major issue.
How about anybody from the oil industry? As far as what I'm thinking about is, and I know it's always in scoping, but the gas, either from the state side of the gas line or from, the new partnership.
No, we our project focus is on our existing customers and the existing infrastructure and making it resilient. So, given the constraints that we feel like we're operating under with the cost, particularly the upfront cost issues, we kept the focus on existing customers and the Terminal 2 and 3 replacement.
I would suggest at some point that we reach out to that, because we do need to look forward, and we need to, especially as we go into financing this court, and are we going to be part of that project or not? So I think just the future, I think we need to.
Yeah, well, I can tell you now that a lot of what we are going to be designing into the dock in order to do this modernization is going to resolve a lot of the issues that the oil and gas company logisticians might have with us now, and that's namely the ability of the dock to hold the weight of some of the things they want to move. And if we've lost business in anything that's happened so far, it's because structurally we're unable to hold the loads, and that piece of it is going to be taken care of just in the new design and the new design parameters. Now, I will tell you, we stay in touch with them all the time, because we're always looking for opportunities now to capitalize on, and do have some conversations pending with them for future needs. But everybody knows where the limitations are with respect to the facility. Sometimes, if we can schedule off a ship day and go up to the north end of the dock, which is in the best shape, then we succeed. And we did that with supporting the Eklutna power plant, and we've done that with the MLP guys on some of the big things they brought in. That's our solution now, but it's going to be nice to have an entire facility where we don't have to worry about where and if a particular space is available anymore. But your point's taken, John.
Yeah, going forward, I think that's a group we need to include for many obvious reasons, and it's a way of developing a community and a marketing. If you bring them into the ground floor, I think you're probably in a better space.
So that's the threat. Moving on in the update, we wanted to brief task orders that were approved since our last update. We did achieve approval on task order 4, which we've discussed before. That the purpose of task order 4 is to develop a test pile work plan and permitting strategy for the project. There's two primary elements to this task order, first being the test pile work plan. And again, the purpose of that is to refine the geotechnical and structural design parameters for the piling that will support the wharf structure. So we've listed 9 elements of that activity, starting with just review of existing geotechnical and pile test data that might be available. I know we at the port had some from when POL2 was installed in the early 90s, and other agencies from the Corps of Engineers to State DOT to even our PM&E department may have other test pile information that would be relevant. So we want to do our due diligence there first. Using the concepts that we've baselined and developed through the charrette, we can project where we may need or be interested in driving test pile and locating those, maybe even perhaps they'd be part of the permanent structure, so we get even more bang for our buck. So that's obviously part of the planning. There's the actual physical installation, instrumenting activities. All of that will be planned out. And also an important element is the hydroacoustic monitoring, which we will be doing really in concert with the permitting strategy when we reach out to the regulators and better understand some of the constraints with respect to belugas and pile driving, and what mitigation techniques we might be able to employ to make that as seamless as we can. So that's an important element of the test pile plan. And then we move into procurement and budget planning, where we anticipate, I think, early next year, actually being in a position to procure the construction services aspect of, mobilizing the pile driving equipment, installing the test pile, and all that's part of the work plan element, as is obviously keeping the Geotechnical Advisory Commission in the loop and gathering any input from them that might be beneficial. Moving into the permitting strategy element, again, it starts with a review of the current environmental documents and permits that were in place for the previous port expansion. Conducting pre-application meetings with the regulatory agencies, the Corps of Engineers, National Marine Fisheries Service, for example. Those would be key. And developing a permitting strategy for not only the test pile work plan, but also the project at large. So there's kind of 2 elements in that. The task order is a lump sum task order for labor in the amount of just under $200,000. We do have some reimbursable expenses identified that are billed on a not to exceed actual expense amount. So the total value of this task order is almost $210,000, just shy of that. We've expanded the schedule a bit, so now we're presenting that on 11 by 17, so it's more readable. We've got, as we reported last time, task order 1, the PMP was closed out, so on the schedule now we're tracking task order 3, task order 4, and keep in mind that task order 2 is always running in the background. That's just our project management office task order. The red line in the center of the page is the progress bar. That's actually where we find ourselves today on the 2 task orders, and we are on schedule and tracking all of the activities on those. So the last attachment to the update is just our budget update. Again, no change to the appropriations for the project. CH2M Hills contract amounts increased the value of task order 4. That's represented, as are the current billings to date on that contract. We do have some other miscellaneous items that are attributable to the project captured in the other expense column. Not much activity there. So we find ourselves on schedule and on budget.
Any questions? I was glad I was trying to read this last night, and it just wasn't doing it for me. Thank you for printing it out.
Well, we can certainly roll it up a bit, but we wanted to show you the level of detail if you're interested in it.
We appreciate the
Okay.
stuff.
It's easier this way,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
And then if you can get us just sort of a list who participated in the charrette.
Sure, yeah,
then-
we'll forward that to the panel.
And as I say, I would like to see some reaching out to other industries. So that would be probably the major one right now.
Yep.
All right, if I can add, I did.
Do you want to add something?
No? Okay, I guess not. I did participate in an awful lot of the charrettes, and I did receive the outbrief. All of the stakeholders were represented in the outbrief. And at the end, there was, when it was all said and done, there was some pretty creative ways that was discussed by all parties that participated as to how to accomplish everybody's goals to the best of everybody's ability, and at the same time try to keep the costs down. And I was pretty impressed with some of the ideas that came up as to how they could achieve those goals. And when it was all said and done, I did have the opportunity to ask everybody that was participating, number one, did they all agree with the options that was being presented to go forward for a 15% design solution? They all agreed. I did point out that there are some challenges to some of the participants there, or some of the stakeholders. And so I pointed those out and wanted to make sure that they understood, that we understood what the challenges were if we were to take forward and basically make these particular options viable. They did. They certainly expressed a couple of caveats, and the question that was proposed to them right at the end, if we're able to address this, and if we're able to address this satisfactorily, would you wholeheartedly support the concept, whatever that final concept is? They all agreed. So right now, we're going through and trying to address what the concerns are, and the good thing is that most of those are already worked out. There's a couple of challenges, but there are ways of solving those challenges and bringing it forward satisfactorily. So I'm very, very optimistic. And I also made the statement at the closeout that I am much more comfortable with the process and also with the outcome this time than I was the first time.
So when do we become party?
So you will. So the way the schedule is right now is they have until November to flesh out and come up with 15% design solutions for the three options that went forward. What will happen is that will come to the executive committee. The executive committee will go through that, validate, number one, that they did in fact meet the guidelines, that they did in fact take care of the concerns voiced by the participants, and also look at and validate the price quotes that's associated with each and every one of the options. If we're satisfactory, if that part goes satisfactorily, then the next step is the mayor gets briefed on those, and we'll address whatever concerns and questions he has. The next step is that we brought to the assembly, and it's up to the assembly as to whether they want to use the enterprise committee as the mechanism for that, or if you want to do the assembly as a whole. That's your prerogative.
Yeah, it'd probably be a work session of the whole, but.
Okay, so then we will present that to the assembly. If there are concerns, questions, or whatever as a result of that, then we will go back, we'll look at those concerns, questions, we'll address them, and if necessary, we'll come back again to the assembly. And then the next step, quite frankly, I'm assuming that the assembly will finally will vet whatever the recommended solution is. And then the mayor will get together the legislative delegation and talk to the legislators about the plan and how convinced we are that this is the right way forward, and also indicate what we think the approximate dollar amount is.
So you're aiming for November 10th?
We're aiming to have this thing done November 10th, yeah.
The week of.
The
Yeah.
week of.
The week of
And
November.
briefing dates to be.
But that's the sequence, and I think that's a logical sequence.
And yeah, we've got we'll have some minor little issues to it about maybe changes of personalities and all sorts of complications.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that the customers had expressed some concerns early on, and I'm really glad you brought them in and had such a successful charrette. And, a lot of them had fears, and hopefully through that process you've allayed some of those fears.
Well, I'm very confident that the two questions that's out there will be resolved.
May I add one last point? And this is sort of, you can help us with this, and it's kind of a paid marketing announcement. But we who sweat this thing every single day have succeeded in dropping the word expansion out of our vocabulary. This is not expansion anymore. This is a modernization effort focused exclusively on the existing facility. And if you guys could help
You're right.
teach people not to keep calling it the expansion project, we would appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, we really feel like this is a new beginning, and you'll notice the new project logo on the top of the cover page, kind of a new brand and a new spirit.
Are we still looking at 45 feet along the front of the dock?
Yes, we
Yep.
are. Regardless of where the front of the dock
Where
winds
it
up.
is,
No,
yeah.
Regardless of where it is.
Well, hopefully with not a whole huge maintenance cost.
Minus 45, and that, that's how we got such good buy-in during the week from the Corps, is part of what we were discussing and vetting in this was what made the best sense to assure that at the least cost for them. So that's been considered as well.
I really do think that if we can resolve, and I'm confident we will, the two issues, that the solution that we will be coming forward with really takes care of the whole project. It takes care of the whole port's needs, all terminals, for 75 years or more. So,
That, just off the subject, did we ever lease the Coast Guard? Are we fully leased out?
Yes, we are. In fact, I was going to mention that to you after this was over. You talked about dealing with the oil and gas companies. From the logistics perspective, the oil and gas companies have basically given responsibility for movement of their stuff to particular companies. PRL Logistics is the company who has that contract for the Point Thompson project.
Okay.
They have absorbed every square foot of storage space we have.
Good.
And they are in no hurry to leave.
And that's the kind of, that's just what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then what about the, it was the Coast Guard building, wasn't it? But the building, we have,
The offices. Are you talking
yeah,
about
the
offices?
offices, is that released?
That is,
Well, actually, the
That's
project
the
management
CH2
office
building.
is
So,
taking some of
you're
it.
using all of that space?
yes.
yeah.
Well, we used another chunk of it for the charrette. We had a nice large room that we can pull.
So there's
bigger
nothing
groups
left there
together.
to lease out?
Correct.
No, and we got benefit from that because rather than them having to lease a space someplace else, that cut down the cost of our contract by
So
providing the space.
currently, we've got 90% occupancy of municipal property down there?
Down there, I could almost say there's no room in the inn.
Okay.
We are, we just about leased out everything we've got that is an improved surface. Now, we have all the unimproved surface area, well, not all of it, but a vast majority of the unimproved surface area is still available. But some of that we have to be careful about because we're going to be mobilizing someday. And nobody likes to lease to somebody and then kick them out. So we're balancing that.
Before you're done, I know everybody here knows who you gentlemen are, but if you could just state your names for the record.
Okay, Todd Coles, port engineer.
Well, LHC's 2 Mill Program Manager.
And Steve Rebuffo, Port Director.
Thank you. Thank you all.